As Lisa Marie, my co-host, is not here, but she is in Greece for all goodness sakes, right? But we've got a powerhouse commercial uh, expert, and I'm going to call you an expert because you've had a long career in this, Wanda Riley with Cushman and Wakefield, and you've been on the operations side of commercial, right?
I have. I started in operations about 23 years ago and moved into a market leadership role about 7 or 8 years ago.
So I want to dive in deep. First off, how did you find your way to commercial real estate?
It was unintentional. I came from an advertising background, and when I was looking to make a move, I actually was um, focusing on the legal sector. And I found Cushman and Wakefield, and I just assumed it was another law firm. And so when I got here to meet with everybody, I'm like, these folks are not talking about the legal industry. But anyway, it all clearly worked itself out, and I've loved the industry, since day one.
That's awesome. And I like the fact that one, you're in leadership, and two, you're female, right? I mean, it's one of those things that, in commercial real estate, as we know, we love our men, obviously, but it's not as often as, it has been, to have the female leadership roles. And so that's impressive that you've been able to do that. You've got about 1,000 licensees in your market, right? Under
we have about 1,000 employees that fall under my umbrella here in Florida, and that's from our client, all of our client-facing professionals to back of house support type of roles as well.
Awesome. So, how involved have you been over the years at successes for the licensees, for the commercial brokers that you all take in?
Right. So my, most important role is the strategic direction of our firm here in Florida for our clients and to drive market share and revenue for our stakeholders. So my role is really to develop that strategy, to execute on that strategy, and that can mean, that can include recruitment, so identifying where our gaps are in our talent and our coverage, and then being focused on recruiting that talent to the firm. It's also with client pursuits and client relationships, so I'm very involved in those aspects as well, down to platform type of issues with supporting our revenue producers and client facing folks. So I touch every piece of the business.
Of the brokerage. That's awesome. So let's talk about, you've been in the business for, my goodness, you've seen, like me, I've been in 24 years. So we've seen quite a few shifts in the market, in the economy, in all different, aspects of it. So let's
Right.
kind of go back from, this first, we can go back to '08 and what we learned in '08, and now what we can use to apply with whatever it is we're going through now. I don't know if we even know what we're going through just yet.
Right. Well, yeah, I think the hardest market to operate in or be successful in is that uncertainty. And
Yes.
and certainly right now on the front end, there's just too much uncertainty out there, and what that does is it just paralyzes people from wanting to make a decision. And a lot of times in brokerage in our world, we just need a decision. That can mean you're growing. It can mean you're decreasing your space. It can mean you're buying something. You need to sell something. All that makes, our world drive forward in revenue and income opportunities. So really this market, it's choppy, it's frustrating, it's challenging, but the more that you can educate yourself on the market and really provide that advice, the advisory piece of the business is just critical right now, and to show up and be there for your clients. It will take a while for this to sort out. It's I listen to so much of the news and read, and like, we're not in a recession. Well, real estate is in a recession. Like, we have been for a while. It might not be the larger economy, but we are certainly in a recession, and it will take a while to get out of that. But it creates a lot of opportunity. This is when you work the hardest, you work the smartest, and you build those relationships, because we know after coming out of the GFC, when things take off, I mean, it's a wild ride, it's a fun ride, it's a lucrative ride. So, do build those relationships now for certain.
And I think people too are looking. This is there's so many opportunities, as you stated, and this is the opportunity for whether you're new to the business or you've been established into the business, that building
Right.
those relationships are the most important, because people rely on people. If
Right.
we listen to everything in the news, like you stated, we'd all be paralyzed. Nobody would
Yeah.
be making any
Right.
type of moves,
Right.
decisions, nothing. Everything would just stop, you know?
Yeah.
And we can't just stop. We've got to keep running on that treadmill. And I
Right.
think, right now, with agents that I mentor that are newer into the business, or maybe
Mhm.
they've made that pivotal switch into commercial or
Sure.
business or what have you, I'm advising them to go back to the old school way of stop texting people. They need to
Oh,
hear your voice. Pick up the phone and dial for dollars, because
yeah.
those phone calls and them hearing you,
Right.
um, that's what's important right now. People want to hear opinions.
That's
And
right.
I mean, I'm sure you all are teaching yours to do the exact same.
Yeah. Now's the time to show up.
Yes.
And it's a it's a challenging time too, because I think, through COVID, especially for women, it gave us more options on flexibility. And I'm a believer in, balancing. I try not to use balance. I don't think personal and work life ever in balance. They need to be in harmony, and that's, different times, different sides need more of you. But the flex, I would caution people entering the business to not take this flexibility as like, oh, now I'm not showing up. You have to show up. So take it for, you can have the flexibility so that you can have more harmony in your life between your personal and professional, but do not lose sight of the importance of showing up and being present, especially if you're new in this industry. Just being in that office environment, and you're picking up on conversations, you're listening in, that transfer of knowledge, that sporadic, hey, I have an idea. Oh, you're right here, Stephanie. Let me tell you that. Versus, people don't, oh, so and so's at home. I'm going to call them. Then I miss the call. Then you're playing phone tag. And, why did I even call you? Or forget about it. I gave the idea to somebody else. So you got to show up.
You do. You got to show up. And even if, we'll take tenant rep, for example. Both of
Mhm.
us have been in that space. And, I tell my brokers that are a little bit hesitant right now. They're not sure. They have this uncertainty. Are they going to make it, or are they not going to make it? I'm like,
Right.
look, I need you to go visit, whether it's retail centers or office buildings, and just walk in and ask the question, are you happy in this space? When's your lease coming up? Have conversations with people. And
Yeah.
so these three guys, I love them to death. They're in their early 20s. They've
Mhm.
spent time this week, and that's exactly what they've been doing. And the reaction that they're getting from these tenants is, nobody's ever asked us this question at all. Thank you so much. It's almost
Right.
like they walked in with their capes on, like they're
Yeah.
superheroes or something, just because they're having the conversation. Nobody's reaching out, nobody's having that conversation. And
That's
so
right.
there's so many ways. I think a lot of times, you know, commercial real estate is very different than, residential or selling a house or what have you, but it's not that hard either. Some of the most simple
Mhm.
tasks will
Right.
make you successful.
That's right. Yeah, go back. I agree 100% with you. Go back to old school. Talk to people like this is how I did it when I got in business. And you might sit there and go like, well, that's antiquated. I have all this tech, right? Just the tech's not going anywhere. You can still utilize
Still
it.
do it,
Like,
yeah.
go buy donuts and deliver them somewhere. Go walk the space, like you said. Go, if you're an industrial, walk through the small bay doors, knock on, is this still meeting your needs? I've got a property across the street. I mean, all that original, ways that everybody did it, it's more relevant now than ever, I think.
Yeah,
It makes you stand out. Go, write a card, a handwritten card, not send an email or a text.
that's
Just
right.
find the ways, send something instead of an email, send it in the mail. You
Yeah.
get a piece of mail now. You're like, wow, who sent me mail? You actually read these things, right? So,
It's true.
yeah, yeah,
It's true. It's not hard. And for a lot of people, I always say, when the '08 happened and 9 and 10 and 11, I mean, I focused a ton on asset liquidations at the bank
yes,
level because,
yeah,
they were at that point where, okay, they're not going to renew a note. They're going to call the note, right? And so they're looking for somebody that can sell that.
mhm,
Well, right now, with the access we have for all the tech gurus that are
mhm,
listening, we utilize data every single day. It's how we
right,
drum up a lot of our listings, but to look and find those loans that are coming due because it's going to pencil a whole lot different when that rate adjusts.
that's right.
And we're doing a lot of hotel sales right now based on just that aspect
Mhm,
because when they go back to the bank and have that conversation, they know the rate's going to go maybe to 9%. But what they're getting hit with is the bank's looking for them to have a lot more equity now,
mhm,
and they
yeah,
don't have enough of the cash on hand because of
yeah,
COVID
that's
to
right.
be able to come up to that 50% mark.
Yeah,
And so they are having to sell. And there's a lot of buyers, there's a lot of cash. There's a lot of
that's
cash out
right.
there and they're ready to buy. We just have to be in the business of finding and creating enough listing opportunities for all these buyers to buy.
Yeah, we are seeing the exact same thing. We have a lot of strategy in place to address distressed assets, and you're correct. You're going to see it in all levels of property, all different property types, and property valuations. And people, when those notes are due, the banks are going to say like, well, I'm only going to finance refi 50 or 60%. You're going to have to put this equity in, and they don't have it. There's going to be a lot of pain coming through this. And I echo your point on there's plenty of equity on the sidelines, and they're just they're opportunistic, and this is going to provide them those opportunities to jump in the game, and make those buys. There will be a lot of activity, and so that's where I try to really stress to folks entering. I mean, even in a down market, there's plenty of ways to make money, and there's plenty of opportunities. You have to be nimble. Back to flexibility, smart, and outwork the ones next to you, because the people sitting next to you and they're just sticking with the same old program that they've done. I mean, good. Don't tell. Like, great. Keep on doing that, right?
It's so true. It's so true. I love that you said that because, when I got into the business, 24 years ago, an old guy, I'll never forget this. He calls me on the phone and he's a broker. He's been in the business, probably 40 years. And he goes, "You're taking my clients." And I go, "I'm not taking anything. I just happened to answer my phone." Like it was that simple to just answer my phone. And like,
Yeah,
I didn't know as much as he did, but I was there.
right,
I was
right.
there to react and respond to these
Mhm.
people because
Yeah,
they wanted somebody to talk to. They were looking for
that's right.
opinions.
Yeah, yeah. It's we're not solving world peace or curing cancer. Do what you say you're going to do and show up. I mean, these are basic fundamentals, but they make a difference. So Yeah,
Yeah.
agree.
So you've been in Florida forever, right?
Yeah, I'm a Floridian, a native. So there's not many of us here. Mostly a lot of transplants down to Florida, but yeah, I'm one of the few.
So
It's been great.
how's Florida? How is its market? I know on the housing side of things, I just saw on the news this morning that people are still fighting over homes and there's not enough inventory and this and that. What's the commercial looking like? I know multifamily is a big, I mean,
Sure.
it's a hit. It always will be, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in general, Florida, we are just blessed and happy to be here. In a big company like Cushman Wakefield, we've got offices and teams everywhere around the globe. And so when I talk to some of my peers in other markets, the Northwest, Northern California, Seattle, Chicago, the New York tri-state region, uh, it's depressing. It's hard. And so Florida and Texas and, really the Sun Belt in general, we're all benefiting from that migration, that population move to the Sun Belt states. And Florida, we're capturing probably more than our fair share. So we're loving it. So here in Cushman, we have offices in 7 markets, and I love when I'm down in Miami because it's got to be the hottest, sexiest market in the entire nation, and you would not even sneeze or blink at the thought of a recession. It's just not there for sure. So that part's fun. We still, on the capital market side of the business, like we were just talking about, it's with the debt markets and the seller and buyer, price expectations so far apart. I mean, we are struggling, and our capital markets are down in those sectors as well. Multifamily, that's a hard one right now, and in the big, large, class A, type of properties. So I think, it will figure itself out. It's not a population or occupancy issue. It's not overbuilt. We still have a shortage in housing in Florida. It's really the debt markets. Property insurance in Florida is really creating headwinds and challenges for us right now, and that's very prevalent in multifamily.
And not to put you on the spot because this may not be an area that you have focus in, but like Fort Myers with Hurricane Ian
Mhm.
that came through. And, my parents live in Fort Myers. I hadn't told
Right.
you that before, but they live there.
Yeah.
And, just that whole thing has been wiped out. What do you think's going to happen going back? I mean, do you think that those houses are going to be plopped back up? Do you think we're going to see more, commercial development? I mean, what are your thoughts there, or do they even talk about it?
Yeah, they will rebuild. There will be probably different things standing on some of those properties, but the rebuild is already started. It's in progress. It's just a funny anecdote. A friend of mine is getting married over right off of Fort Myers on the coast there, and I'm calling the hotel and making the reservation, and she's like, well, there's only us and one other place that have reopened. And it was like, it just hit me. I'm like, wait, wow, wow.
Yeah.
So it's still very real, and they still have a long way to go on the rebuild. But, those, that property is just, really valuable, prized, wanted type of property on, with those water locations. So that they'll rebuild. There's still a lot of insurance claims out there
Yeah.
having to be dealt with. So I know the state is very focused on the insurance industry right now. We need some solutions. It definitely is hurting the overall health of the Florida economy.
Yeah, and just prolonging everything,
Yeah,
in years past, it was like a year later, it all seemed to be back in normal process.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And now we're coming up on a year, and there's people still sitting the day it happened. So
Right. Right.
and then I know Sanibel's dealing with that too, because it's hard to get the businesses or the people back over to those small businesses on the island to
That's
even
right.
take part in everything. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely an interesting time. And you made mention of speaking to Cushwake across the country in the Northeast, and there are people struggling. I mean, I what do you your office market in Florida? Are you all seeing any issues there, or is it a downturn like it is everywhere else?
Um, so it's a little bit of, two tales of one state. So like I was referencing, in Miami-Dade, huge headquarter deals, relocations. It is, just been an overperforming market and still is. As you get to the center of the state, or further north, it's a softer market, but it's not a horrible market. It's, and especially, I when I think of industrial, I know you're asking office. I'll just do a
Yeah.
quick switch. So industrial, you hear the headlines out there too, like, oh, it's slowing, it's softening. Well, it is, but I think you have to put it in perspective. In industrial, instead of them having, year over year 20% growth plus in rental rates and absorption, they're back to, like, 5 to 8%. That's a very healthy market. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like we're coming off that high, and it
Right.
but let's reframe that. Like, this is a good, strong market still.
Yeah.
It's not bad. It's not,
The magic that happened for 3 years straight was magic.
yeah, yeah,
That shouldn't set the precedence for how
yeah,
we grade going forward.
exactly. So, there's a little bit of office there too. Now, office wasn't, outside of South Florida, wasn't having the rental rate, growth at the same levels. But it's I would say in the Central and North Florida markets, they've had more sublease come back on the market, but that's slowly getting, absorbed. So we've been talking, lately, this concept of shadow space, where I don't think the hybrid, um, has really worked itself out, or it hasn't shown itself, because you can have space that looks like it's fully leased, rents being paid, all of that. But these companies, are they really using their space and utilizing their space? And so, they're holding it, they're paying rent, all of that. But what happens in a couple of years when that, lease needs to renew, and nobody's been using that office? Like, there's so much, absorption of people back to the office that would need to happen to really fill up these buildings again. So it's, you have to really, peel back the onion, I think, when you're looking at an office building, because on paper and on the books, it might look like it's 90% occupied and everybody's paying rent. And so, yeah, that building's full, everybody's back, but they're probably not really back physically, right? And so
Right.
when they renew, are they going to totally have that space go dark, move out? They're going to give back some of it, or are they really going to hire, new people, or get folks, back to the office to, utilize the space the way it should be? So I think office has a few more years to really work itself out. We were talking the other day, back, um, 10 years ago, retail was dead, right?
Oh
Everybody was
yeah.
like, retail's dead, it's just horrible. Well, retail's doing great right
It
now.
is.
So I think office is going to go through kind of a process, a discovery period, and a, new, what's the purpose of office, phase, for several more years.
I think so too. And I mean, even in my market, which is Louisville, Kentucky, where I live, the downtown Louisville, a lot of vacancies, a lot of vacancies, a lot of
Yeah,
large, empty floors of these
yeah,
high-rise buildings. But
right,
suburban office is
right,
huge. I mean, you
right.
can't even find, there's not enough inventory for the
Hmm.
suburban office market. So I
Yeah.
think it just really depends on that specialty. Looking across the board, whether it's, in the 1,000 employees that you have under your umbrella, what product class or what asset class is doing the best right now that you just see booming off the charts?
Yeah. So office is doing office leasing, industrial leasing, uh, retail, both leasing and investment sales, and then hospitality, investment sales, and industrial sales. So the ones that are struggling more would be multifamily sales, office sales are
Yeah.
not happening right now. They're few and far between. Um, Self storage, they're gaining momentum back. So I think they'll recover here, sooner
Gosh,
than later.
through COVID, all I heard was self storage, self storage, self storage, and I'm like, oh my gosh, well, it's not one that I specialize in, but
Yeah,
I know plenty of people who do, and I'm just like, what
right.
in the world? I mean, what
Yeah,
are we, a United States of storage contain? That's
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's crazy. We got into self storage pre-COVID, and so there's a little bit of when we did, it was very strategic to diversify our business because there's self storage is the recession proof, right? People don't want to give up their junk, but they have to downsize their home. So self storage has just been a wild ride for us. But it's when we talk to clients, institutional clients, they're all saying it's about the different asset classes than the core, the office industrial. They're all looking into hospitality, senior housing, self storage. So the alternative property classes are a great way for these large investors to diversify their portfolios and to deploy some of that capital into other areas.
Yeah. Well, Wanda, you being in the business as long as you have, coaching, mentoring, training, licensees as well,
Mhm.
do you believe that commercial brokers should pick a lane and stay in it? Or are you one that believes diversification is okay too?
So I think that it needs to, you have to consider the market and the size of your market.
Yeah.
If you're in, a major city or market, MSA area, then I think specializing is the way to go because to be competitive with your
Right.
peers too, you really need to understand that asset class and study it and be the best that you can be in that property class. But I think in more tertiary markets that to achieve the income level that you might want to, then you might need to be a little more of a generalist and spread your focus between a couple of different areas. I wouldn't try to like I could do anything. But if you need to have a couple of different lanes to practice in, try to two, maybe three. But if you're selling retail or retail leasing, don't try to go do self storage, right?
Right.
So pick a couple.
Pick a couple. Exactly. No, I agree with that tremendously. All right. We talked a lot about old school ways of doing business today that absolutely work. And we both know that. What is something new? Or maybe it's not new, but it's something that you all are encouraging your associates to pull into their business to grow and build. Anything?
So with a firm like ours, we're just full service. We have so many different specialties and resources and experts in the company. We're really taking this time to encourage people to study, learn, participate with some of the other principles around commercial real estate, to just really be a student of it all. Now's a good time to do that. We're also really encouraging people to kind of, if you're going to do things, do it the right way. So, like, for an example, we just completed a series. We hired a consultant and we did some really intense LinkedIn training. So if you're going to, if the social media is part of your strategy, your approach to the market, then be really good at that. Kind of,
Right.
really understand how you drive, people to connect with you and to, look at your site, that type of thing. So now's a good time to kind of invest back in yourself.
For the longest time, and I don't do social media well. I do it okay, but my LinkedIn, I have mastered that, and do a lot of business on LinkedIn. But we had a gentleman on this show who's a bang up tenant rep. I mean, he's making all kinds of money. I don't know if you saw the episode, but I couldn't believe it. We had him on the show because I was just so enamored by him doing these TikTok videos where he does tub talks about commercial real estate. And I'm like, how in the world is this driving you business? But he does it well. It's goofy, but they're remembering it.
Yes.
And it's like, I always want to ask it's like, okay, you're not with a big brand, right?
Right.
So you can do that, but how do you think if you had been affiliated with a big brand? He goes, I don't think they'd let me do it.
Probably not. Chances are. But I love it, like, be unique, develop your own brand.
Yes, brand is huge.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, awesome. Wanda, any last words of wisdom or advice for anybody watching the show today?
Oh, hang in there. These type of markets really do thin out the herd as far as the weak. So work harder and smarter than the next person, and you'll be just fine. There are opportunities. So, put on a different pair of lenses when you're looking at the market and clients and opportunities, because they're there. And if you're creative and you're bringing solid advice to your clients, you're going to get business.
Absolutely. And go back to basics. Pound the pavement, walk in, shake people's hand, and ask how you can help them. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Well, Wanda, thank you so much for all the leadership you've provided to this industry. Thank you for being a powerhouse woman, and thanks for spending, 30 minutes of your time with us today. We greatly appreciate it.
All right. I enjoyed it. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye, y'all. Bye.